Efnan, I'm at the Turkish parliament. This is one of the places that was targeted by the F-16 fighter jets on the night of July 15. And while the bombing was continuing, a number of parliamentarians were here and they were sending out a message of defiance to the public, calling on them to take to the streets, to protect their democracy and so forth. And one of the people who were inside the parliament at that time was Ahmet Berat Çonkar. He's the member of parliament from the AK party. Mr. Çonkar, you were at the parliament when the jets were bombing. What was going through your mind at that time?
Actually, at that night, we realized that something very bad was happening for the nation. There was a big threat for our future, for our well-being, for our democracy, and for our actually livelihoods, because it was a huge threat that we have never experienced before in this form. So we decided as the parliamentarians that we need to be out in the streets, in the parliament. We need to be everywhere resisting this coup attempt, because this was an operation done with these FETÖ members inside our army, but it had external connections. There were there was an international dimension to this coup attempt. So we suddenly understood and felt that this is the night that we need to resist, and if this is the night that we may sacrifice our lives for this nation, because a huge change would happen if we lost against the coup makers that night. So in the parliament, we made a big resistance as parliamentarians. I was attacked when I was trying to come into the parliament in this garden. About like 10 meters from here, a helicopter has shot at me, and I received a very close ammunition fire to me. And about 5 to 10 minutes in this area, we ran for our lives. It was a shocking experience, because you never expect that your soldiers, your members from your own army, your national army, would do something to a parliamentarian, to your own people. When I get into the parliament, we made speeches to motivate our people that we are resisting with them, and they must be steadfast. And during that time, we received the missiles from F-16s. But at least I would say that we were resolute to defend our parliament, our nation. It was like defending our own honors. I mean, I said goodbye to my wife. She was pregnant at that time. I had 2 children at home, but I never felt a minute that I should go back, or I should stop acting like this. There was a willpower, there was a strength built in us in that night, and at least we can say that that mood was everybody in the country. That made us successful against the coup makers, I could say.
It was quite unprecedented, really. We heard from the president earlier. He said that the weapons that were given to those soldiers to protect the nation were used against the nation. Now, as someone who experienced it himself, and of course saw the civilians on the streets defending their democracy, how does it feel when you hear particularly some other countries criticizing Turkey's response to those who had infiltrated state institutions?
I simply think that they are out of reality. They are cut out from the reality, because they cannot comprehend what we felt, what we have gone through in the streets. It was blood and tears, and it was all these emotions. People were losing their loved ones, young, old, women, men. Everybody was there for their own civil liberties, democracy, and the national well-being of this country. So I think that those people outside of Turkey looking at this event maybe like a film, but we went through the realities of this, and here in the police headquarters, we have more than 50 policemen slaughtered by the missiles when they are in their dormitories. I mean, we couldn't even find pieces of their bodies. So this is a reality. I mean, this is what the true face of this FETÖ organization is. They don't believe in the human honor, human rights, rule of law, democracy. That's all of those terms and concepts are a lie for them. That's their, for their own interest, they are using this. And unfortunately, some people outside of Turkey or in foreign countries are still having difficulty to understand the reality of this dark organization, and they are also not empathizing enough with the Turkish nation. So that makes us really sad. I mean, because we want to feel the sympathy and empathy at least. We had 251 people martyred at that night, more than 2,000 wounded, heavily injured, some of them. Still they are trying to heal from their wounds. So at least now we are expecting the world community to show their sincere support to Turkish nation and support democracy and the national will in Turkey.
The state has been taking action against those people who had infiltrated various institutions, but we're talking about an infiltration period lasting decades.
Yeah.
And we've heard earlier President talking about internal and external threats. What more do you think needs to be done?
I think that especially in the countries that the FETÖ members and their affiliates are based, these countries just need to operate the rule of law, because we have sufficient evidence against these people. They are accused with a big crime in this country, and if these countries are our partners and allies, simply they need to work out the processes, the judicial processes. We have agreements with these countries, with the United States, with the European countries, which are providing a safe haven for these members of the FETÖ organization. They need to just operate the regular judicial processes. That is what we want. And after a fair trial, of course, if somebody is innocent, it's okay. But if somebody is guilty, then the Turkish courts are going to make a decision. We have this infrastructure in this country, and it's still continuing. After 4 years, the trials are still continuing, and the decisions are given. So the world, the nations should understand that this is a judicial process. The rule of law should be practiced, should be implemented, because that's all we believe in. The parliaments, we are legislating these laws, these rules, the international agreements. They are done for implementation. Otherwise, there will be no meaning,
Turkey is trying to secure the extradition of a number of high-profile FETÖ suspects, including the leader. The Justice Ministry here in Turkey says that substantial evidence has been provided to various countries, including the US. Do you then feel that perhaps it's about politicizing the extradition?
I definitely believe that they are not implementing the rule of law. They are not operating the judicial practices. They are acting politically, because the files that we provide them are more than enough for acting in a judicial process. However, they are not even making any moves as far as making that process work. So what I think is that some countries or some organizations within some countries are working together with this FETÖ organization, because we know the intelligence side of this organization, and especially from that perspective, I think they are being used by, unfortunately, by some of our allies and partners, unfortunately.
Ahmet Berat Çonkar, Member of Parliament from the AK Party. Thank you very much indeed for talking.